Pataluk, Black Warren, Jigra, Control, Kufia, School of Lies, Gulmohar, Joram, The Fire, Monica, Oh My Darling, many of them. I've gone through the IMDb profile of yours. It says like 140 or something. I'm here with a very, very dear friend of mine, Sid Meer. So, as me, Rajshri, I'm an actor. I act on films. When I get a script, I go through the emotions and I, portray a character. What do you do as a colorist?
Well, as a colorist, I would say I take an image and I bring it into a computer system which has a set of tools like Photoshop, and I'm able to, add color, reduce color, add contrast, reduce contrast, and basically through those tools add a certain layer of emotion to a particular image. And I'm able to do this over multiple images, so you could say multiple frames, and over a sequence of shots which then constitute an overall film.
Like for me, because when I started, I was of course knowing the few head of filmmaking, like of course cinematography, editing you require. More I started working, then I got to know about DI, about, color grading is important. But I don't think so. The normal layman people actually know about it.
Yeah, like actually the term gets confused because if you actually type colorist on Google, like the most searched or the links that really come up on top are actually colorist for hair. So it really is, one of those funny things that sometimes people forget that it's actually a film related term as well.
Okay. So why you didn't want it to become colorist of hair and you become colorist for the cinema?
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange journey, but I actually started with cinematography.
Okay.
And then got into visual effects and then got into colors. Being on set was great as a cinematographer, but I realized that I'm not really meant to be within that world of chaos. And I prefer being, in slightly quieter spaces. Visual effects was amazing, technically challenging, but still a bit too removed from the entire storytelling experience. But color kind of balances this really well because you're very close to the director and the DP when you're working on this, and you're helping them craft the emotional arc of a story. A lot of my education is through all of those different departments. That's how I kind of maybe am able to help tell these stories in a certain way. I don't think I could be the colorist I am not, having been through cinematography school or through visual effects or having, been an editor on certain projects.
As you worked on so many projects, you worked on the biggest projects also, and you worked on an independent where money is also a crunch. Like, what makes you take on any project?
I mean, it's really the story and the people, to be honest. I think that's like the driving force for every decision I've made. And if there is a story that kind of resonates, that I feel particularly attracted to, and I feel like I can contribute in a meaningful way, and if the people that are a part of it are actually great people to hang out with, because a lot of the times, like, color grading is solitary. You're by yourself, spending hours in a darkened suite, but it's also collaborative when you have a director and a DP who come in, and then, you should be able to actually go out and have a meal with them, have a drink with them. And, if they're, your kind of people, it just becomes much more rewarding and it's a wholesome experience. Then I feel like you can actually give a lot more that way, rather than just being someone who's hired for a particular job, versus being, a part of the filmmaking team.
So you get involved from the first, through the storytelling script?
Preferably in pre-production. There are times where I've been given scripts in advance for feedback, and like when you're reading the script, you're constantly like visualizing the scene and the shots and the emotions, and then you start, building off of there. There are times where, directors have been kind enough to actually call me for a reading with the cast.
Oh, nice.
And that really, informs of how you're going to take the color forward. And then we kind of, move on from there once we have the cinematographer selecting the lenses and his lighting package. Then we work off the material that he gives us from the look tests and the camera tests. And then we help him build a custom LUT that he can use on set.
What is LUT?
It's a lookup table.
Lookup table.
So it's kind of a text file which has a bunch of numbers and is basically translating, one set of RGB values to another set of RGB values. And that LUT is something that we would load either into a monitor on set or into a camera on set. And it would help the entire team who was viewing the monitors on set to get a live preview. So it's like a digital filter that gives you a live preview of what the look of the film is.
So, like when you get a script or you're part of the script meeting and all, so how do you read the script? Like you start working on, because when we get the script, we think about maybe, the characterization, the relationship, backstory, motive, purpose, all these things are there. How do you read the script?
I mean, once you start reading, you immediately start, visualizing, the scenes, the characters, the kind of costumes that they'd be wearing, the kind of direction that, the production designer might push the colors in, the costume designer might push it in. And then it just becomes, like a great starting point for a dialogue with, say, these different departments. And we're very lucky that, we've been part of certain projects where we get involved very early. Black Warrant, I was there on set during the, the look tests.
Yeah.
And we helped Somu build the show LUT. We, in fact, tested the gels that were used within the jail. And we basically realized that the certain gels that they used in the first test were very, very strong, and we have a very strong green. And then we found the right kind of gel after testing. I think it's called waterfront green or something like that. And yeah, that's how we ended up, helping certain decisions that were made on set just by doing all of these tests.
That means you have to be involved in every department. Like as you said, of course, costume, even makeup.
A lot of times that we've received material, there are certain actors and certain skin tones and certain makeup materials that I use that reflect light very differently on camera. So while it might look correct to the human eye like here, but when it's actually reflected off your skin and going to the camera's lens and hitting that sensor, that might sometimes shift a little green. And that is something that we have to then meticulously, go in and key and fix.
Yeah.
So we prefer to give those notes right up front during testing. So if you're actually doing the camera tests and the look tests with the actors right up front, it's great to also test the makeup and the materials that you're going to be using, because you can then inform them if there's something that's really not working on camera, then they could make those changes. It's very rare that we kind of get some kind of interaction with production designers and costume designers in prep. But if it does happen, it's actually very, very cool, because that really allows for like a great cohesion of all of these different, minds.
So, Sid, as you said, we were talking about how you collaborate on the pre-production side, So start with the director. So what is this whole conversation?
I mean, you try and find, I would say, the emotional language that you can speak in, whether that is in the form of sharing a photograph or a film or a song or a painting. That's how you kind of, understand from them what is the emotion that they're going for the film.
And along with the DOP?
Yeah,
the same
and then
process or different?
You have the same kind of collaborative process with the DP, and with the DP you also then start talking the lenses and the lighting. So it becomes more technical than when the DP gets involved.
Okay. But this is when you get a script and you're part of the pre-production.
Yeah, and this is, something that I would really encourage everyone to kind of do. It's very hard to kind of get this across, to allow producers to get the post team involved really early, especially color. But I wish, someone if they take something away from this, is that, you should get the colorist involved right during prep.
But then what happens when when they don't get you involved?
I mean, then you're actually working with what's already there. So you already have something that's shot and edited, and then you just have to do your thing, and then you do the best that you can. It's more about making a lot of decisions, pre the shoot, going on set. So you can do certain things differently or certain things better, that can be more efficient and, help overall workflow.
All that, you have a team to work on it. How do you work with them? How do you work with the whole system? Can you just...
Sure. So we have actually a Dailies team, and they are involved with offloading all of the camera magazines on set. They would do a safe download of all the material, and then you would have a Dailies colorist either on location or in the studio who would get that material, and he would start his process of actually balancing all of the material to make it look consistent, take to take. So that there are no inconsistencies in lighting. Say there's like a cloud that comes by during a take, but it's not there in the other take. So then they would balance to correct for that so that all of the takes are consistent. This is our Dailies team, and then they would hand over to the studio. Within the studio, we have a conformist, we have a colorist, and then you have the color assistant, and then you have a mastering team. So the conformist is actually in charge of taking the final edit from the editor and rebuilding the entire timeline on the grading system using all of the high-res material from the camera. The color assistant will then help organize all of that on the timeline, and they would divide everything into color codes for certain shots. Like we have color codes which are for retines or for pan and scan. And they would also do the grouping for us so that every single scene is broken into a particular group so that you can just go in and quickly grade entire groups together. And then the colorist would go in and he would do his thing. And then I would hand over to the finishing and mastering team. And the mastering team would basically take over from the colorist. And then they would create the different deliverables that are required, whether it's for cinema or whether it is for streaming. So for cinema, they would create a DCP. For streaming, they would create a wide variety of deliverables because each streaming service has their own specification for it. We also have a QC team. QC means quality control or quality checks.
Okay.
So what they're doing is they're making sure that the content that is going out to the audience is free of any artifacts, free of any defects. It is in pristine quality, and it is packaged and delivered in the right way that either a streaming service or network or the distributor for cinema requires.
Okay.
And we have like a great production team. So that is our studio coordinators and producers, and they help put like the entire schedule together. They also basically interact directly with clients and make sure, they're aware of the progress of the project. They deal with the scheduling of everyone's times, making sure, everything is running like clockwork.
One quick question.
Yeah.
In your Dailies team, how many people?
So the Dailies team comprises of usually two people who go on set, one person who's in charge of the camera and offloading the camera cards, and the other person who's in charge of taking all of the material shot on that day and then grading it and then creating a Dailies version and a cut list for the editor and one for the director. There is one conformist and we have one color assistant and one colorist and one mastering person on every project. So depending on the project, sometimes you would scale up and we'd have probably more assistants or more conformists if, there are multiple episodes of a particular series or a very large film with a lot of visual effects. So we keep adding as we require based on, the scale of the project.
Okay.
As an example, on Patal Lok Season 2, I went in and I started the grade on episode 1, 2 and 3.
Okay.
And then our other colorist Prithvi then started the grade on episode 4, 5 and 6. So that's how we kind of worked in a sort of tag team manner so that we could, get a lot of these episodes done in a very quick manner. So my conversation with Avinash was to basically, try and understand what they were trying to achieve with this particular season of the show. And it was largely about maintaining that same world, which the audiences have become familiar with through season 1, but just taking it a little bit further in terms of emotion. And we also tried to find a new look for the show because we were in a new territory in Nagaland.
Yeah.
So we kind of created that Delhi look for the police station, which follows one particular track with Hathiram. And then we also created the look of Nagaland, which basically goes much cooler, is slightly different in contrast. makes you feel that you are in this slightly hospitable place where there is always danger around the corner. So that was one of those things that we kind of worked on. And once we had those looks set in place, then I could kind of tag team and hand over to another colorist who would take it on from episode 3 onwards after the introduction of Nagaland to finish the rest of the episodes.
Now, about the post-production, like, what kind of a softwares you use?
Sure. So my setup is basically a large black box. It's a room which has a desk with my control panel and either a calibrated monitor or a calibrated projector. I am either running a Blackmagic Design DaVinci Resolve system or I'm running a film light baselight system, because we run both within the studio and we kind of choose which system to use based on the project. And we've set up our rooms, which are all named after painters. So we have the Basquiat and the Dali room and the Mondrian room, which are equipped with HDR monitors and Resolve systems, and they all work in a collaborative environment. So they're all on a single shared database, and they all are able to open the same project at the same time and work on it together. So what happens a lot of times on series is that you might have multiple episodes that are being graded at the same time by different colorists, and they all can open up that same project and open up each episode's timeline at the same time and work on it, even at the time that a conformist has opened it on his system and he's adding new VFX shots in the timeline. So that way we are able to work in this collaborative atmosphere using Resolve. And what we've done is we've kept our film light baselight system in our theatrical grading room, because that's kind of like a standalone suite where we kind of just work on one project at a time. And that is a room that we've kind of not named yet. Still trying to find a name for it. But it's essentially our hero suite right now. And that's where a lot of the films that we're doing happen.
That brings me to, working with the directors. Our favorite director. You worked on Trapped, AK vs. AK, Black Warrant, Vikramaditya Motwane. How's the brief? Because Trapped and AK vs. AK are kind of different space. What is your conversation with Vikram?
I mean, Vikram as a director, because he kind of explores so many different genres every time, you have a lot of creative freedom to actually, find something unique and new and, push in a certain direction. We have Trapped, which is about this person who is all by himself, and it was really about finding the color palette for loneliness. So that was one of those longer grades where you actually went back and forth with the DP. And also we kind of changed our process midway, because we realized that if we worked in aces, we could get a little more information outside the windows. So the film was shot on a Red camera, and we were trying to work with Red's own IPP2 color science. We didn't realize till we switched to aces that we were actually losing a lot of the information outside the windows, which was all the city and the buildings outside. The minute we switched, the whole film changed for us, because suddenly he feels more trapped, because now you're seeing this world living outside. So we desaturated a lot of the insides. He has his one very blue wall, but even that has the color sucked out of it. And then there are times where he imagines stuff, and then you cut to much brighter colored scenes, when he's in the bus, or he's having lunch with the other actor. So it goes into very bright saturated colors, but it always cuts back to something that's much more drab and desaturated.
And what about AK versus AK? That happened during COVID, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was actually one of those very live wire kind of gritty films. It was really run and gun, with Swapnil shooting it with whatever was largely available light on Mumbai streets, and then slightly augmented in certain locations. So the first version that I had shown Vikram, the feedback was that it's looking too cinematic. Whereas, the film is supposed to feel way more real and meta, because you have characters using their real names. So for it to feel real, he wanted to feel like it's almost as if it's a documentary crew that's gone about shooting this, and it's very, handy cam aesthetic. And that first version, which he felt was too cinematic, we kind of just toned that down, and we found a sweet spot. that really worked for the film. It just so happened that, the first version that we made had a lot of stuff going on in the grade, and I had a lot of time during lockdown to work on it. So I actually did multiple versions, and I think I reached like version 14, which was, I would say, a cleaner version of version 1. And that's what we kind of finally went with.
But he was happy with version 1.
Yeah, he was happy with version.
Which one you would have picked?
Version 14. I mean, we kind of, got to that right place with, the right kind of balance and tools.
So when you shoot something like, control, so there are different kind of a camera setup, different, like, the whole process is very different than the period pieces. So how do you maintain the skin tones and, how do you work? How do you design the whole thing?
I mean, it was very tough on control because we were working with material that was originating on iPhones compared to the end sequence of the film, which is actually shot on an Arri Alexa 35. We actually work always color managed, which means that every single camera material that we bring into our color grading system, that is converted into one common working space, which helps us maintain a certain level of consistency in the raw material itself, so that when we're working off a common color space, and that way it makes matching all of those different cameras very, very easy.
When you're grading, when you're working on your any project, so who is the one, like, who give you, like, instructions?
So a lot of the feedback actually comes from the director of photography or the cinematographer. We also have the director in on certain projects where the cinematographer isn't available or is away shooting another project. Documentaries especially are some projects where you only have the director involved because it's something that's been shot over like 5 or 7 years. The cinematographers have moved on or not even in the same country, and then you just have the director sitting with you and giving his notes and feedback on your work. But largely, I would say on fiction features or shows, it's the cinematographer. And you have sometimes the cinematographer also come in with his assistants. So he also has like a second pair of eyes, looking at it and, reviewing it. So yeah, it's usually like a great collaborative process that way to have them also in the room.
You, of course, need those notes also. Along with director's notes, you need their assistant also to kind of come on board and, like look at each and every vision.
Yeah, especially on like very complicated projects, like especially on Control. You had Jasmine in throughout, because she was supervising the entire project, and it was so complicated in terms of post-production, where you had multiple pieces that had to fit like a puzzle, and you had a very unconventional workflow where we were grading material first, then giving it to VFX, then getting it back, and then putting things together. So you really need to have someone who has an entire overview of the entire process and knows exactly where each piece is going to fit, because it can get very, very complex at times.
So Sid, let's talk about the beautiful show called Rainbow Rishta and a thriller, a mystery, a show called School of Lights. How do you grade both of them?
Well, non-fiction and reality is really about truth, and it is about being able to filter all of those emotions through without it feeling like it's being, messed about with. You really are trying to show up a mirror, and that is how it should feel very clean. Rainbow Rishta was a show about the LGBTQ community. It had multiple threads and multiple stories from different cities. We tried to maintain a certain look for every city, which also went with each character. And we kind of found like a distinct look for each of those threads. For School of Lies, you kind of have a lot more freedom in narrative work. So you can kind of really push color in ways that you can't with nonfiction, because the audience will be receptive to it. So you're really trying to find what are the colors for grief or suspense. and you kind of, move the image into those slightly, colder directions, all the while maintaining a certain level of emotion for the characters.
And then, what about the space of documentaries? Like, you graded All That Breathes and While We Watched, right? So, how do you maintain that kind of a thing? Because where, it is about reality, realism, majorly, but you have to keep that cinematic space also. So, how do you see documentaries? How do you work on them?
So All That Breathes actually had a very distinctive visual style within its cinematography itself. And it was really about just elevating that, without losing touch with reality, just about making it a little more heightened in emotion, but still be about the birds, still be about the characters. While We Watched was almost like a thriller newsroom drama, and we kind of wanted it to feel like that. I watched the film, when it was just out of the edit, and I had my jaw on the floor, and I couldn't imagine that this was reality. It actually felt like a fiction film, and we discussed references, and Spotlight was one of those references.
Okay.
And somehow naturally, like when we just kind of added just a simple like film look to While We Watch, it almost resembles exactly what Spotlight is. It's a very clean kind of look, but it is still filmic, and that is what we kind of went with. But really, the documentary and the story itself is really hard hitting, and it does all of the work. You really have to do very little in the color.
So, as you worked on Jigra also, Asan Bala's beautiful film, it's futuristic, it's anime, it has this all gimmick, she's running in the slow motion. How do you describe all that? So, what is the process like for that?
So for Jigra, we knew that we would have a country that was created, which didn't exist.
Yeah.
So it was some South Asian country,
Right.
and it had to have a certain flavor. One of the references that I went back to at that point in time was the films of Wong Kar-wai. And we tried to evoke that sense of her being in South Asia. Although the film isn't shot primarily there, 95% of the film is actually shot in Bombay.
Okay.
On sets.
Uh-huh.
So it was about recreating that emotion and evoking that feeling of her actually being in the South Asian country. And a large part of the film, when she is there, is borrowed from The Look of Monica, Oh My Darling, which is something that we've evolved over some time and which Swapnil really liked. So we kind of just took that to Jigra and took it forward from there. The look kind of changes when we go into action mode and when she is trying to break through and get her brother out of jail. And VFX then, really brought everything home together by putting all of these elements, making it look as if, it was all real.
So, there is a film you worked on called Fursat, which is shot on iPhone. So, how's the process of working on an iPhone? Because nowadays, everyone is making a film on iPhone. But a lot of times, they don't understand that, okay, if you grade it differently in whatever technical way, then the film can look very different.
I think if you understand what the limitations of the phone are, you can actually do a lot of wonderful things. It's actually a great camera. It just has a few limitations, and we actually understood what those limitations were before we got into it. We had a team from Apple that basically sent us a sheet that told us how best to utilize it,
Oh, wow.
what application we should use to record. Now all of that information is actually available. The phones have gotten even better. The quality that you get out of it is almost indistinguishable from certain higher end cameras as well in certain scenarios. And I would actually encourage everyone to, at least try it out for their story. If that kind of aesthetic fits, I think it's a great storytelling tool.
So, tell us about like some experience. Can you just take out your favorites or something?
One of my earliest films that I did, Labor of Love with Aditya Vikram Singh Gupta, I think that was one of my best experiences because I just learned so much. Him being a painter and fine artist himself, actually brought so much more. Like when he was there with me and we were grading, like, I could understand a lot more about the image through his feedback. And it was also a great challenge because the film was originally destined to be a black and white film. So it was shot with all of the monitors on set with their color turned to 0.
Okay.
And that's how they actually placed all of the elements in frame. Now, when they decided later in post to make it a color film, a lot of the colors that were used in production design and costume weren't actually intended to be that color. They were only there because they were a particular shade of gray to represent as black and white on screen. So we actually did a lot of keying and windowing to walls, to costume, to bring them to a color that would work for the film and the emotion that it needs to portray, just using all of those techniques.
Sid, now your filmography इतनी सारी है तुम्हारी, इतना सारा काम किया है तुमने, तो इतना सारा काम किया है तो challenges भी होगी. So tell us something about your challenges. What kind of a chaotic situation you've gone through, and how do you manage that?
Largely, it's been great, but there are some times where you will run up into a creative challenge where, the director or the DP might want a certain look, but it's actually not there originally in their material. And they're trying to push it in a completely different direction. And at that time, you have to just level with them and, have an honest conversation and say that, look, what you're trying to go for is not really achievable because either the image isn't there, as a base to start with. And at that time, you have an honest conversation and you try and find a way to creatively get to the place that they want using a different method. You can find a way through that. So there is many times where you will come into this situation and you just have to have that conversation and just be upfront and say that, look, we might not be able to achieve exactly this, but we can probably get here, by doing it a different way.
So there are new trends, new things are happening, So how do you keep updated? Like, what is your process of learning new things and all?
Attending industry conferences, talking to my peers. We are very lucky that we get a lot of advanced notice when a new software is being launched. They would sometimes send us the software for beta testing. So we get to also give them feedback on it. Reading, watching films, just staying updated amongst, all of the industry happenings. Subscribing to, newsletters that give out all of this information.
Yeah. I think a lot of the viewers is going to learn a lot from you. So, that will be an updated thing for them too. It's so amazing because, you worked on such a vast of film, like genres of film. But along with that, now you're working as a producer also. Tell me, you produced 2 amazing films which had their premieres at one of the best festivals, Sabarbonda and Bakshabandi, right?
I mean, it's great. It actually frees me up sometimes to do a lot of other things. Producing is just something new that I've gotten into. So for Sabarbonda and Bakshabandi, I was able to set the look initially using all of the test material and build like a show lot for them so they could use it during the shoot. For Rakshabandi, I was actually able to go to Barakpur just when they were starting shoot, and I got all of the B-roll material which they shot initially.
Okay.
And I built the LUT there on set with Somu, and they took it forward from there. I had Himanshu helping me out on the grade on both of these films, so once I was done with just setting the look, he kind of did all of the heavy lifting with the cinematographers in the room and then put all of the films, in its place. So I got then time off to actually, concentrate on producing duties for all these films. So wherever I was required, I was able to contribute.
What kind of work excites you?
I'm actually looking forward to doing some science fiction and horror. It's stuff that I haven't really explored. And I feel like there's a lot more room to be creative within those genres. It's also fun to work on a project that mashes two genres together, because you can then pull into different directions as well. So I'm looking forward to projects that actually stimulate my creativity that way.
And what's your favorite film of, where you said, okay, this is something you want to achieve?
I mean, of the latest, I would say the kind of stuff that's coming out of America right now in the streaming space, Severance on Apple TV, Disclaimer as well on Apple TV.
Right.
One of the highest acclaimed shows that they have right now. But just the color work on that is just extraordinary.
So, Sid, hi. Hi, Sid. I've just hired you as a color grader and bridge post works in general. And of course, Rajshri, you are the lead actress in this film, in this variety of films that I want to be making. Could we start with, let's say, this is my camera setup, okay? It's a single shot, all right? I don't like to move the camera at all. And I like to have this very clear, bright, classic interview style lighting. However, you're going to have to grade it to suit the needs of the film as the film continues to change.
And I should look beautiful.
No, not in the first film. The first film is a horror film, Rajshri.
No matter what,
It's an intense horror film. So what would you do with this exact setup if we give you the footage?
So, I mean, it's really about finding the code for all of these films. And for horror, you might go, slightly green and contrasty or desaturated. Something that gives you that eerie vibe. If you were to say go for a romantic look, you'd probably go slightly brighter, more warm, something that feels like a hug. If you're going for an action film, you'll go for, stronger contrast and grit. If it's an action comedy, you'd actually play that up even more because you want the comedic bits to land much better. If you're going for slightly futuristic sci-fi, you might go with slightly brighter poppy colors for, some of the set design. And if you were going for a detective noir, you'd go with, higher contrast, smoky, shadows. So you kind of just try and find something through instinct and hopefully it kind of lands for the audience.
someone who wants to be a colorist, what advice you'll give?
I would say just be curious and find resources. They're actually all available online. There are a ton of websites that impart high-level education in advanced color grading techniques. There are some schools also that have education, but more on the software side. And there are some very nice books out there. There's Patty Bellantonen's If It's Purple, Someone's Gonna Die. There's Walter Murch's In the Blink of an Eye. These are great resources. I mean, I actually went through them when I was coming up. Once you are armed with that education, and once you know the software in and out, you should just approach a studio for like an internship slot, or an assistant slot if that's available. Today, we're in a position where all of the software and hardware is very easily accessible.
Okay.
You can actually download a free version of Baselight called Baselight Look on your laptop and start learning. You can download a free version of DaVinci Resolve on your laptop and start learning. So all of this is just a click away. As long as you're enthusiastic and you have the drive, you can get all of it right now. And I would say there are a few online resources as well that have training courses on these. There are some through the SIMPI organization. You can sign up for those. Those are slightly expensive, but you can sign up for those classes as well on how color and light are perceived as well. But yeah, I mean, just be curious, travel.
Be present.
Yeah.